They say the wilderness is full of mysteries. But what if those mysteries are watching you, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? National parks may seem peaceful, but deep within their forests lurk creatures that not exist. And some who wander in never come out the same. It started with a simple camping trip. Daniel, an experienced hiker, had camped alone dozens of times before. The peaceful isolation of Yosemite National Park was exactly what he needed to escape the stress of city life. He found the perfect spot, a clearing surrounded by towering redwoods with a small creek nearby. As the sun set, he built a fire and let the sounds of the forest lull him into relaxation. But then, something changed. The usual hum of insects and rustling leaves stopped. Silence fell over the forest, heavy and unnatural. Daniel felt it before he saw it, a presence, something watching him. His eyes scanned the darkness beyond the firelight. Then he saw it, a tall, impossibly thin figure standing just beyond the tree line. Its skin was pale, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. It had no hair, no clothing, just empty, sunken eyes and a grin that didn't seem human. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring. He forced himself to look away, telling himself it was just his imagination. But when he glanced back, it was closer. His heart pounded. He knew he had to get inside his tent, away from whatever this thing was. But the second he stood up, the figure tilted its head as if studying him. And then, it took a step forward. A long, unnatural step. Daniel scrambled back, grabbing the only weapon he had, a hunting knife. But what good was a knife against something like this? The creature took another step. It was fast, much faster than it should have been. With a deep, rattling breath, it spoke. "You shouldn't be here." The voice was like wind through dry leaves, hollow and wrong. Daniel turned and ran. He didn't care about his gear, his fire, nothing. He ran until his lungs burned, until he collapsed near a ranger station at sunrise. When he told the rangers what he saw, they exchanged a look. "You were in the wrong part of the woods," one said quietly. They never asked for more details, as if they already knew what he had seen. And as Daniel left the park, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching him. Mark and Jake had always loved hiking together. Glacier National Park was their latest adventure, a week-long trek through the mountains, far away from civilization. It was supposed to be fun, until they got lost. One wrong turn led them deep into the woods, miles from the main trail. As night fell, the trees became unfamiliar, twisted into eerie shapes in the moonlight. Then, the smell hit them, a stench of rotting meat. Jake gagged. Something died out here. Mark nodded, but the smell wasn't coming from one place. It was all around them, thick in the air. Then, a sound, a low, gurgling growl. Jake's flashlight flickered over the trees. At first, there was nothing, but then a pair of eyes gleamed from the darkness. They weren't human. A shape stepped forward. It was tall, too tall to be a man. Its limbs were twisted, its fingers long and bony, its mouth stretched too wide, filled with jagged teeth. It looked hungry. "Run." Mark barely had time to whisper before the thing lunged. They ran, faster than they ever had before. The thing was right behind them, crashing through the trees like a starving beast. Its breath was hot, rancid against their backs. Then, Jake tripped. Mark turned just in time to see the creature reach for his friend, its clawed hands inches from his leg. But then, a gunshot. A ranger appeared out of nowhere, rifle aimed right at the thing's chest. "Keep running," the ranger yelled. Mark grabbed Jake, and they sprinted behind the ranger. He fired again, and the thing screamed, a wailing, inhuman sound that echoed through the mountains. Then, silence. When they reached safety, the ranger never explained what it was. He just said, "Stay on the trail. Some things don't like to be disturbed." Neither of them ever went hiking again. Rebecca loved solo backpacking. The Great Smoky Mountains were her favorite, endless trails, crisp air, and the peaceful quiet of nature. But one night, the quiet became something else. As she settled in her tent, she heard it, a low, distant howl. At first, she thought it was a coyote, but it wasn't quite right. It was deeper. Almost human. She ignored it, until it came again, this time closer. The trees swayed, though there was no wind. A shadow moved beyond her tent. Rebecca held her breath. The howl came again, but this time it was right outside. Her blood turned to ice. It was mimicking her breathing, slow, shaky. Then a whisper, "Come out." She didn't move. Then the tent collapsed. Rebecca screamed and kicked, forcing her way out. The moment she did, she saw it. A massive wolf-like creature standing on two legs, its mouth stretched open wider than anything should be able to. It let out a final deafening howl. Then it vanished. The next morning, all that was left were claw marks in the dirt. Rebecca never camped alone again. The wilderness is full of mysteries. Some we can explain, others, they remain in the shadows, waiting. Next time you visit a national park, stay on the trail, listen closely, and if the forest goes silent, run.